Hello and welcome all to another super duper zoology session. Tuesday, 12 o'clock, we are here. I apologize for that 5-minute delay, technical glitches. Let's start our super duper session. I'm Mythili Mam, your zoology faculty from Infinity Learn. And today's topic in zoology, we are going to do digestion chapter in the next 2 hours. Chak De series here for you to brush off your syllabus for your revision in a very short time period before the NEET 2022 arrives, so that you are absolutely ready for your NEET examination, right? Good afternoon, Indira. Very good afternoon, dear. Welcome to the session. So this is Infinity Learn. Like, share and subscribe our YouTube lectures. We have amazing faculty, not just for the zoology session that's happening right now, but the botany taught by Kiran Chaudhary ma'am and Suchita Mukhopadhyay, chemistry Aman Verma sir, physics Vibhati Jain ma'am. So these are the series of lecture that are there absolutely for free, so that you prepare well for your NEET examination, right? Log on to Infinity Learn website, subscribe for the courses for the different NEET preparation, whether you are in 11th grade or 12th grade, or you're just repeating the repeaters batch or the long-term batch or the 13th class, whichever way you would like to call it. Also, the test series, it is really the best series that's offered. So there are score examinations going on. There are a lot of test series that's offered, various packages that you can explore. You can also get discount using the coupon code MYTHILI 40, Mythili 40. So here we are. Hello Sukumar, namaste dear, good to see you in the class. So here we are starting our digestion chapter in the Chak De series. Let's Chak De NEET 2022, right? As I told, do subscribe, like, share, comment too, so that we understand, what kind of questions you have, or, what other areas we need to address. These are absolutely for free. Make the best use of them, right? And this is the curriculum that we have followed in the month of Jan. We are done with human reproduction, the reproductive health, the animal kingdom, and here we are doing the digestion and absorption. Not to worry, we will come up with the curriculum for the month of the Feb also. We'll try to weave around your board examination so that, it will not disturb, your board's preparation, as well as you can attend these not just on the platform live, but you can also watch it later point of time. That's the best use of the internet, right? You can see the recorded videos later point of time also. It's not like a physical classroom where you missed the class, you missed it, right? So why the digestion chapter? Now you may ask the next question, right? We have done with 3 chapters. Now why digestion for this particular session? Here is the very clear picture of why we should do the digestion, right? On an average, 2 questions every year in the NEET examination. That's a lot. Human physiology, 2 questions from each of the chapters, each of the digestion to that of the chemical integration, right? So these chapters are quite important because, not just from the NCERT, a little scope to go a little over the NCERT text, that is going a little beyond the possibilities also from these chapters. So these chapters are some things that you need to focus upon, concentrate, not just for your NEET, but later for being a medico as well, because these are the chapters that you are going to carry on along with through the life, through your medical studies, and later when you become those great doctors, right? Human physiology is definitely important, right? Hi Emily, hi Nagur, good to see you all. So this is the digestion chapter. I am Mythili, your zoology faculty from Infinity Learn. So the digestion chapter begins with talking about the definition of digestion. See, that's quite highlighted in the textbook as well, right? So what does it say? It's the process of conversion of complex food substances into simple absorbable forms. Now, why do you have to convert into simple absorbable forms? So that these can be absorbed and assimilated by the human body, right? The major food components being the carbs, the carbohydrates, proteins, fats. We also require, of course, the vitamins, minerals, and the water, of course. So these are large complex macromolecules that need to be broken down into smaller ones. Say, for example, the carbs, they have to be broken down till the monosaccharide level in order to be absorbed by the body. Proteins to the amino acid level, right? Then we have the fats to the monoglycerides. So these are all complex molecules that need to be broken down into simple forms so that they can be absorbed by our body. Our body itself is composed of these trillions of cells which needs to be nourished, right? So for that, digestion, of course, is a very, very, very important life process. Hi Subiksha, very good to see. Yes, I do remember, dear. You are the one who comes up with lots and lots of questions. Good, because that's how we learn. That's how, interaction is always the foundation for learning. It's always about transfer of knowledge, right? Every day rather than, we will plan sessions, maybe later point of time. You need to be, good with other subjects as well. Now, NEET just doesn't comprise zoology, right? We do have botany, physics, chemistry. You need to learn all these. 2 hours every day will be too much for you. Later point of time, you would say, ma'am, please give us a gap so that we assimilate what you are trying to tell us, right? So yeah, we will plan maybe later point of time, right? So yeah, food, as I was saying, will have the proteins, carbohydrates, the fats, of course, the minor elements, what we require in smaller quantities. What do we require in major proportions will be the proteins, carbohydrates, and the fats. And these are the ones we have in the micromolecule, or what we require in smaller quantities. Now, these can be absorbed directly without being digested. These are the micromolecules which can be directly absorbed. Now, what requires digestion majorly is these macromolecules, which are the proteins, carbohydrates, and the fats. So what did you have for your lunch today? If at all you're not done with your lunch yet, think about the breakfast that you have. Those eggs contain a lot of protein, right? If at all you had those hot idlis and dosas, yes, they are giving you that protein part also from the urad dal that you would have consumed, right? Rice, of course, that includes a lot of carbohydrates. So try to, relate with day-to-day things and your lessons. And that's one of the best way always to try and learn without much of an effort, right? If you're relating the things, day-to-day things with what you learn, learning becomes much more easier, and learning becomes fun and lovable. Where in Infinity Learn, we always believe that learning is infinite and fun. Hey Ramos, good to see you, Ramos. And then what else do we have? Zoology is your favorite subject, my favorite too, dear Subiksha. So here goes the same pinch, right? Just 2 biscuits, no, that's not right. You need to have your healthy breakfast, not just learning. And for that learning to happen, you need to be physically healthy as well. So do not ever skip your breakfast. Why do we call it breakfast? Have you ever wondered? You're breaking the fast. The fast that you have been on for more than 12 hours, you would have had your dinner, almost 10 to 12 hours back, right? It's like breaking your fast. It is a very, very, very important meal of the day. Never skip your breakfast and try to have a healthy one, not the junk part. Yes, you love your pizzas, burgers and all, but try and restrict it to maybe once a fortnight or something like that, right? So these are the macromolecules and these will be the micromolecules. So digestion, macromolecules is found, food cannot be utilized by our body in their original form. As I was telling, they need to be broken down, carbohydrates to monosaccharides, the proteins to amino acids. So they need to be broken down and converted into simple substances. The process of this conversion is what is called as digestion. As you can see, one beautiful picture represented there, you understand how proteins are broken down to peptides, these amino acids that are bound by the peptide bonds, and further into singular amino acids finally, so that they can be easily absorbed by the body, right? So remember the definition of digestion, quite easy. It is basically breaking of the complex food molecules into simple absorbable forms. Now, how do we put it in terms of the NEET question, right? So basically chemical digestion, and it involves hydrolytic chemical reactions. Most of the chemical digestion is taking place in a hydrolytic chemical reactions. Hydrolytic, again, as I always say, divide the word. Hydro meaning water, lytic meaning breaking. With the addition of a water molecule, you are breaking that complex food molecule. Most of these reactions are the hydrolytic reactions. Hi Angrila, very good morning. Join the class. Welcome to the class, right? So the digestion is majorly broadly categorized into the mechanical digestion and the chemical digestion. So mechanical digestion includes what? Mastication. What do we mean by mastication? It's the chewing of the food. We chew the food in the mouth along with the help of our teeth, right? So that's mastication for you. And then there's churning of the food in the stomach, how it is being, mixed with the HCl and all. That is churning. And then we also have peristalsis, the movement of the food through your esophagus. What happens when the smooth muscles are contracting, relaxing, it is allowing the food to move along the esophagus, right? So these are all the part of the mechanical digestion. In the mechanical digestion, we're talking about chewing the food, right? And allowing the food to travel along the esophagus, which is peristalsis, and the mixing of the food with the HCl or the enzymes, the churning that's happening in the stomach, segmentation that's happening in the intestine so that it's well mixed with the enzymes. On the other hand, chemical digestion requires the action of digestive enzymes. Say for example, the amylase that we have in our mouth, right? The pepsin that we have in our stomach. So these are all the enzymes that are helping with the what? Chemical digestion, right? So Faisal, hi, welcome to the class. I know you are the one who answering a lot of questions last time. Hope you keep the tempo for this class as well, right? So the digestive system, basically straight from your NCERT lines, is again categorized. Previously it is the processes that we are broadly categorizing, whether it is taking place in a mechanical manner, chemical manner, both of course are required together for the digestion to take place, right? And then we have the digestive system, the physical structure, right? This digestive system is also again classified into what? The alimentary canal and the digestive glands. These are the major components that we need to be discussing in this particular chapter, right? So enzymes are those proteins, mostly the proteins which are basically helping with catalyzing a particular reaction. It speedens up, it fastens a particular reaction. Here, most of the reactions require converting complex molecules into simpler forms, and this action is catalyzed, right, by the enzymes. So hope that doubt is cleared for you about what enzymes are, right? So the alimentary canals begins with an anterior opening. Previous slide I talked about alimentary canal and digestive glands. We're talking about alimentary canal. First up, it starts from the mouth and ends with anus. As you can see in the straight NCERT picture redrawn for you, it's starting from the mouth and ends with the anus. How many of you can recall Animal Kingdom chapter that we have done before, right? Those digestive system that have two openings, mouth and anus, what is it called? Complete digestive system. And those which have only a single opening both for ingestion and digestion, what is it called? Incomplete digestive system, right? Hi Sandesh, welcome to the class. Now, as we are doing this particular chapter, since we are there, incomplete digestive system, quickly answer which phylum exhibits this incomplete digestive system. While you answer that, I am going ahead with the lesson, right? Incomplete digestive system is where there is a single opening, both for ingestion as well as egestion, right? The phylum that is having this particular character, or you can name the organisms as well, right? Go ahead and answer that while I'm talking about this. So mouth, it is leading to the oral cavity, right? The oral cavity will have the important structures like that of the tongue, teeth, right? So these are two major structures that we are going to discuss as far as the oral cavity is concerned. Then we have pharynx, which is again nasopharynx, oropharynx and laryngopharynx, right? But we are majorly concerned with the oropharynx as far as this particular chapter is concerned. Later when we discuss the breathing chapter, that's when we are going to be concerned with the nasopharynx as well as the laryngopharynx. Faisal answered that platyhelminthes. Excellent, excellent Faisal. Good that you're still maintaining that tempo. Good dear, congratulations, that is the right answer, right? Now the esophagus, which leads to the stomach. This is where we talked about that peristaltic movement, right? And the stomach is the J-shaped bag which consists of regions like the fundus, cardiac, body and pylorus. Remember, the new edition has 4 regions. If you still have the older, it's talking about only 3 regions. Remember, it's the 4 regions of the stomach, which leads to the small intestine, which has duodenum, jejunum and the ileum. These are the 3 major regions of the small intestine, which gives it away to the large intestine, which again has cecum, colon and the rectum. Colon, of course, again we also have the ascending colon, right? The transverse colon, the descending colon and the sigmoid colon. Okay, that is also something that we are going to discuss as a part of this lesson. Moving on further to rectum, which opens out finally through the anus, right? So these are all the different parts of the alimentary canal. As you can see, mouth is leading to what? Oral cavity, which leads to the esophagus, right? Either written as E in terms of the American spelling or OE in terms of British, it's the esophagus, which leads to the J-shaped stomach, which in turn leads to the small intestine, which in turn leads to the large intestine, which finally opens out through the anus. So this is the overall structure that we are going to discuss today, right? So first up, as we have seen in the picture, the mouth is an opening that is leading toward the oral cavity, right? Within the oral cavity, as I was telling, the 2 important structures being the tongue and of course the teeth, right? The gums as well as the teeth. As you can see, these lips are the ones which are guarding this opening, leading to 2 important structures in the oral cavity, which include the tongue and the teeth, right? Here we have the beautiful picture where you can see the lip, the teeth structure. Then there is the soft palate, which is undergoing a little conical projection, which is what is called as vola, right? We have a hard palate here. Try rolling your tongue and touching the roof of your oral cavity. It's quite hard, right? It is what is called as the hard palate. Try rolling it further down. Go all the way back with your tongue, trying to touch. You can feel the softer part also, which would be the soft palate. Very easy to remember, just because of the texture that you can feel with your tongue, right? Try touching with the tongue over the roof. Initially it is hard, right? Hard palate. Try rolling it over all the way back. It is soft. It is the soft palate which is forming this conical projection, which is what is called as vola. It is kind of blocking the nasopharynx so that the food doesn't, travel into your nasal cavity. Quite irritating, right? You can't imagine the scenario. You don't want that to happen. The vola is helping. And then we have the tongue. Tongue is attached to the floor of the oral cavity by lingual frenulum. Very, very important. Can be made the NEET question. The point at which the tongue is attached to the floor is what is called as lingual frenulum. You can actually look yourself into the mirror, try your rolling up your tongue, and you can see that point of attachment, right? Lingua frenulum, right? So these are what we are going to discuss. Oral vestibule is nothing but that little space you have between the lip and the teeth. That is what is referred to as the vestibule, right? So next up we are, as I told, alimentary canal is one, and then we also have the associated glands, which I try to give in the earlier one, where a clear bifurcation I have given, where the structurally broad categories include the alimentary canal and the digestive glands. And here is the description of the oral cavity, especially of the teeth, which I will be discussing in the next few slides. So each tooth is embedded in a socket of a jawbone. Because it is embedded in such a manner, what do we call the human tooth? It is the thecodont. What do we call it? It is the thecodont. Very, very, very important again at the NEET level. What kind of a teeth we have? It's the thecodont. Why do we call it thecodont? Because it is embedded in the jawbone, right? A specific characteristic that you observe in the mammals if you go back to the animal kingdom. Because see, in mammals and crocs, you see this kind of an attachment. On the other hand, look at how it is in the frogs. Acrodont, it is just attached to the surface. Now, this kind of an attachment is an advantage in those animals in that whenever they catch prey and they're losing these tooth, if at all, they sprout up again. They're usually polyphyodont. The teeth appears multiple times. It's not embedded into the socket like this, but it is attached just to the surface, which is what is called as acrodont, which is found in the amphibians. We also have what is called as a pleurodont. Look at it, it is attached to a certain side, okay? It seems to be sprouting up from the side of the jawbone, pleurodont. We find such an arrangement in the lizards, in some of the reptiles, right? So these are others in terms of how teeth is attached to the jawbone, right? Diphyodont. Now, what do we mean by diphyodont? Again, understand di means two. So, what is two here? We have basically two sets of teeth. We humans have two sets of teeth, which is why we are referred to as the diphyodont. Now, what are the two sets of teeth? We have milk teeth, right? Or the deciduous teeth. And then we have the permanent teeth, right? Have you wondered why it is called the milk teeth or the deciduous teeth? Come on guys, quickly try and answer that question. Why are the initial set of teeth called the milk teeth or the deciduous teeth? Of course, permanent is a word all of us understand. It is there to be, going to be there forever in case we lose those also. It's never being replaced, right? Permanent for a reason. Now, why is that? The initial set are what are referred to as the milk teeth or deciduous teeth is my question. Hello Ankita, welcome to the class dear. Again, along with Faisal, you are somebody who keeps answering a lot of questions. I remember from our last class, you all already said the formula of the milk teeth. Excellent job dear. Right, we are going to discuss that also. Faisal says they are to be replaced. Yes. Can you further elaborate? Can you try and answer? First question, why they are referred to as the milk teeth to the deciduous teeth, right? So why are they called? So why specifically these names were given for the first set of teeth that you see in the babies? In the babies, just when the teeth are appearing, the first set are called the milk teeth, right? Ankita gave the formula, right? Why are they called so is my question. While you try and answering that question, I'm going to go ahead with the lecture, right? So when we say diphyodont, there is also monophyodont teeth in certain organisms. Mono is a single set, and there's also polyphyodont. That means multiple set of teeth. The teeth keep falling off, they keep reappearing, right? So monophyodont, single set of teeth. Diphyodont, two sets of teeth. Polyphyodont, many sets of teeth. But what we have to basically remember as far as our curriculum is concerned, diphyodont, because we have two sets of teeth, right? So you can see the milk teeth here, the permanent teeth here, beautiful diagrams there for you to understand, right? So try answering, why are they called deciduous or milk? I'm not getting many answers. Faisal has tried, Ankita has actually went ahead and gave the formula also. Try and answer that question, all of you, right? As I always keep saying, it's not about being correct. It's about trying to interact. The more we try to interact, the more we learn, right? In terms of the subjective interaction, that's a best way to always keep learning. Even though if you're wrong, that is one memory that's quite strong as far as our brain is concerned. Wrong answers when you give in a particular test or orally in a class, these you go out there and look for the correct answer again. So these are some answers which are just there without much of an effort in your brain rather than those which you would have gotten correct, right? So always try to answer. Angrila said, I haven't learned this chapter, so if possible, right? So that is how we are going beta. We are basically learning from the basics only. I'm starting with the NCERT and I'm giving little beyond information. Say in NCERT we have diphyodont. So we go about explaining that first. A little beyond NCERT we have monophyodont and polyphyodont, which I'm trying to explain. So we are trying to go from the basics itself, not to worry at all. You can re-watch the video also later point of time, right? It's there on the YouTube. And do not forget to like, share and subscribe, comment as well, right? So we have 32 permanent teeth and we have the incisors, canines, premolars and the molars. The formula is written as ICPM, where I stands for incisors, C stands for, canines, premolars and the molars, right? So this is how we write the formula. It is basically 2, 1, 2, 3, right? So why do we draw this line in between? This is basically representing the upper and lower jaw, right? The numerator is written for the upper jaw, denominator for the lower jaw. Again, do not mistake the entire upper jaw. It is 1/2, right? It is 1/2 of upper jaw, which is why it's multiplied by 2. So that is again mounting up to the 32 permanent teeth that we have overall, right? Beta, beti, beta is something that we use pyar se for girls also. So not to worry whether I'm addressing beti or beta. Beta is something that's you're using for girls also as, right? When you are lovingly calling them, right? So Neutral word can be used for either, right? So, here you are getting even more details about each of the tooth. So, there are incisors which are chisel shaped and are useful for cutting. So, those which you have in the front line, usually these are the incisors, right? These are chisel shaped usually for the cutting. And then you have canines, go little peripheral to your incisors. They are sharper, right? You will find them even more sharper in the carnivores like that of the tigers. Look at their mouth. You can find beautiful pictures out there in the images when you go Google them, right? So there are these sharp canines, secodont kind of a teeth. They're not so sharp when it comes to the human beings, but still help in the tearing of the food. Then we have premolars and molars, which are usually helping with the process of the grinding, right? So maybe because they started developing during the embryonic stage is the Faisal's answer, right? So after drinking milk, they will grow. Okay, I'm glad that you are interacting, trying to get an answer. So let me put forth the answer. First, my question is, why are they called the milk teeth? Very, very simple answer, just because they are as white as milk. If you don't believe me, catch hold of this child who has milk teeth, and some of the tooth are lost and there are permanent teeth as well. So find such a child and try observing the mouth where you see both milk teeth as well as permanent teeth. You will find a clear differentiation that the milk tooth are more whiter, milky white in appearance compared to the permanent teeth. They're literally white. You know, when a child smiles, the pics really look so good. They have really whitish tooth. Just for that reason, they are called the milk tooth. They are as white as the milk. Now, my second question is, they are also called deciduous, for which partly Faisal has given the answer. Why deciduous? I'm looking for the connect exactly, which is why, you know, but you are almost there, Faisal. Good. Deciduous forests are those where we are talking about the leaves being falling off, right? Leaves fall off there. Here, which are the tooth that are falling off? The milk tooth. So, this deciduous meaning basically means fall off eventually. These are as white as milk, milky white tooth. Simple, very simple reasons. They are called milk tooth because they are really white. The deciduous because they fall off eventually, right? Which is why the first set of teeth are called so. Permanent, as I told, easy to understand. They're going to be there for good. In case by accident, injury, some other aging problems, you're losing them, they are not going to be replaced. We have only two sets of tooth, right? Yeah, a little later on, as and when you are not maintaining your gum health, yeah, eventually they are going to be very yellowish as well. The plaque, we call it, right? All the toothpaste ads give you more gyan about all these things, which you can easily remember because they keep playing again and again, right? The third molars are what are called as the wisdom tooth, right? These are some things which are appearing much later point of time. After maybe you are 17, they appear even as late as 21 also, and they're considered vestigial. Try and answer this question now. Very simple question. What do we understand by vestigial organs? I know Faisal, Ankita, you people are ready with your answers, but let others, Subiksha, Angrila, and you know, Sandesh, Sukumar, all these also answer, right? So my question is vestigial organs. You can try and answer that. As we move on to another beautiful picture of showing all the tooth that we have in our gums in the horizontal manner like this. Of course, it's a clear, nicer representation only of how we have. Of course, their angle is going to change when it is within the jaws. So the frontal, we have these incisors which are helping with what? Cutting. Little peripheral, what do we have? Canines, right? These are helping with what? Tearing. Right? And premolars, molars on both the sides. Again, these are helping with grinding, right? So you can also observe a little change between the lower and the upper maxillary and the mandibular molars, how here they have 3 roots in terms of the upper jaw, whereas they have 2 roots here in the lower jaw, right? So these are acting against the gravity. Maybe they need a stronger attachment, just a hypothesis there. They have the 3 roots on that of the upper jaw. Here on the other hand, in the lower jaw, they have the 2 roots when it comes to the molars, maxillary molars and the mandibular, right? So here also is given a list of cusps. Cusp is nothing but the point, right? So molars usually have lot more cusps. You can feel it with your tongue all the way on the side, the molars and the premolars, right? So the dental formula, finally, here what it is. Ankita, you have given this answer before. Indira has answered vermiform appendix. Yes dear, it's a vestigial organ. I kind of asked you for the definition, but good that you have come up with another vestigial structure within the digestive system. Good, it's vermiform appendix is a vestigial organ. Faisal says they are the ones which are functional. He has given the perfect definition, right? So let me read the others. Sandesh has says evolutionarily they will degenerate. Yes, a coccyx tail. Sandesh gives some of the examples as well. Very good, excellent, excellent all of you. You have your basics in an excellent manner. Vestigial organs are those which are, functional in our ancestors and presently have degenerated, have eventually become non-functional, right? Say the wisdom tooth is something of like that, because that's why when you develop it later point of time, you experience a lot of pain because there's not enough space to accommodate that wisdom tooth. Even the vermiform appendix, it's just there, but when it gets inflamed, you will have to go for a surgery. Appendectomy, most of you would have heard of this particular surgery. 24-hour stomach ache is what we call in common Indian language, right? So if at all it's inflamed, that's when it's going to be quite toxic, where you will have to cut it out with a little surgery, right? So that's about vestigial organs. As we were discussing, 2102, that means again put ICPM. Which are the teeth that are totally absent in the milk teeth? Premolars. Premolars are some things which are totally absent. So make sure of such nuances. NEET can, instead of going for the formula, you can directly say 2123, 2123, right? If at all there's a question, which are the set of teeth which are completely absent, right, in the milk teeth? Premolars, 0, you can see that. Molars also, there are lesser number of sets compared to that of the permanent one. Here you see a 3, there you see a 2, right? And another tricky question that can be asked, how many teeth are being replaced? So number of milk teeth, how many is it? It is 20. So how many are being replaced? It will be only 20. All the teeth are appearing only once. So we have certain monophyodont teeth as well. If it's confusing you, don't pay much of attention. Remember, we humans are diphyodont. What I'm trying to tell you is, of the 32, 20 are some things which are falling off, right, and are being replaced. Others are the ones which are going to be just there, they're not going to be replaced. So you can call them the monophyodont ones, right? The rest of the 12 teeth that we are talking about, right? So that's the teeth formula when it comes to the milk teeth as well as the permanent teeth, right? Premolars and the third molar, as always, bingo Ankita, precise to the point, right? The third molar set. So here comes the structure of tooth. Yes, this is not something that's discussed elaborately in the NCERT, but as I told, we are going a little beyond there. So the whole teeth structure can be of 3 different regions: crown, neck, root. So 3 regions, which is the crown, the neck and the root. What you see, okay, when you open your mouth, the portion that you see is the crown, right? Just when it is getting embedded into the jawbone, that would be neck. What you totally different will not be able to see unless there is an injurious condition or anything. It is totally inside the jaw or the socket bone. What do we call that arrangement again? Thecodont, right? So that part is what is referred to as the root. So this particular crown, so this is made with a very, very, very hard substance. It's the hardest substance in the human body, which is what is referred to as enamel. Very, very, very important. Can be a NEET question. The strongest substance, right, is nothing but the enamel. Enamel is something that is secreted by a set of cells in the embryonic stage, which are what are called as ameloblasts. Ameloblasts are the embryonic cells which are secreting this particular enamel. And then next to enamel, there is also what is called as dentine. This is also hard substance, but it is not as hard as enamel. Remember, this is secreted by a set of embryonic cells which are what are referred to as the odontoblasts. While you try and assimilate that, learn that, let me have a sip of water. You also, as I always say, try and have keep yourselves hydrated, right? Very, very important, something that new generation are forgetting, you know, looking into the monitor all the time. Food and your water, these two are very, very, very important things. And of course the exercise, right? So yeah, have enough sleep as well. So this is the crown that we are talking about. Inside, in the root also, further it is extending into what is called as the cementum. And within this hard substances, there is a little space which has this jelly-like substance. What do we call that area? Pulp cavity. It is what is referred to as the pulp cavity. Into the pulp cavity, you can see these, orange, yellow, blue lines that are entering into it just for the representation so that you understand this nicely. So there are blood vessels, there are nerves that are extending into the tooth, into this particular pulp cavity. That is how you are able to have that sensation of the pain in very hard structures like that of the tooth, right? And then it is nicely embedded into this particular socket, right? It also has what are called as the periodontal ligaments, which holds this tooth in the position, right? So this is a little beyond, but most of it, I would say, from the slide, take home point is the hardest substance in the human body is the enamel, which makes that little crown of your tooth. So this is something that's very, very important that you need to understand, right? Dentine is the second hardest. You could say that next to the enamel, dentine is also quite a strong substance, right? And then we move on to the tongue. So what are the important take-home points you have about the teeth, dental formula, and pay attention to within digestion. If you observe the past NEET questions, many of them are about the tooth. So pay a special attention to the particular topic. It may be given as few lines in the NCERT text, but many ways the question can be asked. We are thecodont, we are diphyodont, we are heterodont. Why hetero? We have different kinds of tooth, incisors, canines, premolars and the molars. And we have permanent tooth, which will be teeth 32 and the milk teeth will be 20. We also have to remember the formula 2102 and 2123 of the permanent teeth. So the formula which tooth are being replaced, which are absent totally in the child, which will be premolars and the third set of molars, right? And which are for grinding, cutting, tearing. All these are some things that you need to brush up, because lots and lots of questions from not just previous NEETs but PMTs before that also about the tooth. Next we move on to the tongue structure, a muscular organ. Tongue is a muscular organ which is basically having projections on top of it. What is the point of attachment? Can you recall? Hope that's not in the slide there. Yes, it's not there. So you can try and answer that. I did discuss before. The tongue is attached to the floor of the oral cavity. In this very lecture, I discussed that. What's the point at which the tongue is attached to the floor of the oral cavity? Try and answer that. Faisal already has come up with the answer. He's always very quick. Good dear, hope you crack that NEET really this particular year. Ankita also has given her answer. Others also try and participate. Sandesh, Sukumar, Indira, Angrila, right? Lots and lots of you who are trying to interact. So yes, put in your answers there. And do give your likes also as the video is going on. Do like, share, and also do not forget to subscribe. Tell your friends about these free lectures. Let the knowledge be shared. The more you share, the more it grows. Right now, this is not something like your money or wealth, which you keep it with you only then. Even in fact, nowadays the modern financial formula is even that also you will have to invest and share, keeping in many different baskets, right? So yeah, the tongue is composed of skeletal muscles covered with mucous membrane. It has both extrinsic and intrinsic tongue muscles, right? It's basically a muscular organ. Those muscles within the tongue are usually referred to as intrinsic. Those which are, originating outside of the tongue and still make their entry into the tongue will be extrinsic. Alright, remember that bone which supports the tongue in your skeletal system. This is one important point. Can be a NEET question also. What is that U-shaped bone which supports your tongue? Right? And let me give the answer for the before one. Yes, Faisal, Indira, Ankita, all of you got it right. Excellent. Frenulum. Lingua frenulum is the attachment point of the tongue with the floor. Now, the next question is, the tongue is supported by a bone, a U-shaped one, which is not articulating with any other bone of the skeletal system. Quite an important point, and is may be possible NEET question as well. Ankita, Faisal as usual have come up with their answers. Let others also follow the lead, right? So the intrinsic muscles are not attached to any bone. But most important point that you need to remember straight from the NCERT, the projections that are present on the tongue. Little projections that are present on the tongue, they are of various forms. The four forms: circumvallate papillae. You see that they are present on that inverted V-shaped called sulcus terminalis, right? So circumvallate, just because they are circular, right? Look at their shape, they are circular, right? And then there is foliate papillae. They are the leaf-like structures, right? Leaf-like, foliage, right? It means leaf. You would have learned from your botany, right? Fungiform papillae, because they're little fungi-like, little, those bell-shaped, umbrella-shaped, button-like, right? They are fungiform papillae. And filiform, what do we understand by fili? Thread-like, right? So basically we have circular projections which are called the circumvallate papillae, leaf-like projections which are referred to as the foliate papillae, fungi-like, which is the reason why they are called fungiform papillae, and thread-like, right? And so referred to as the filiform papillae. So what are these projections for? Yes, you have initially given us some list of, all these projections that are present on the tongue. What is the function? Because it always boils down to how they function, right? How are they necessary for us? How are they important for us, right? So these projections are some things which have taste buds in them. So they are some things which are allowing us to taste things, taste buds. Now here's a catch. The NCERT clearly lists particular sentence. Not all these papillae have the taste buds. Most of them have. Pay attention to that. Always read between the lines in the NCERT text. It's very, very important you understand it, right? So it says, yes, they have taste buds, but not all of them. So which are the ones without taste buds? That will be filiform papillae. They have no taste buds. Again, the question arises, yes ma'am, taste buds are there, they are helping us with the taste. When there are no taste buds, why do we even have them? And in fact, they are the largest number. Look at those white dots distributed throughout the tongue. So largest in number, what are they? Filiform. Smallest of the projections, again filiform papillae. Why are they so many in number where they do not even have the taste buds? They help us with providing the friction, right? So these are the ones. Yes, Ankita says tango, tactile. Yes, these are the ones which are, you know, sensory to the touch. They do not allow the food to slip off your tongue. The tongue will be otherwise very smooth where the food just slips off. They provide that necessary friction. They provide that necessary friction where it doesn't allow the food to literally slip off, right? All the others have taste buds in them which are sensing that chemical, right? Food also of course have different chemicals which are, you know, sensed by these, where the hair cells are some things which are sending that signal to the sensory neurons. We have these glossopharyngeal nerve, right? There is also vagus from the throat. So these are all the nerves that are taking that signal and allowing us to sense that taste. We are going to discuss that in the neural control, also specifically about the gustatory receptors. As of now, what do you have to understand from this particular slide? We have 4 types of projections on the tongue, which include the circumvallate, the fungiform, filiform, and of course the foliate papillae. Foliate again are told in different manners. These are some things which are present in the as a child and later degenerate, and maybe it's present only in certain other organisms. So there are various theories about the foliate. So importantly, you will have to remember about the circumvallate papillae and the fungiform papillae, right? So they have the taste buds, they are helping us with the sense of the taste. Of course, around the tongue also, these are the lingual tonsils, what we refer to as the Valdeyer's ring. There is different types of tonsils that are present. The palatine tonsils, the lingual tonsils, right? So these are all the made up of lymphoid tissue which are helping with immunity. So these are some things which are responding to any, now what are the chances of microbes getting into our body? High, pretty, with the food that we consume, right? Throughout the alimentary canal, you will find a very nice defense mechanism that we have. It starts with these lymphoid tissue that is present in the oral cavity to the malt that is distributed all over the alimentary canal, mucosa associated lymphoid tissue, right? So this is where the antigen antibody interaction is taking place. Connect it with the human health and diseases chapter. Always try and correlate chapters. You will be able to crack that NEET examination for sure. Not just understanding a concept as such individually that anybody would answer. It's the comprehension when you are relating to different topics. You're co-linking. Integrated physiology is now a very, very hot field that we have out there, right? Hi Charisma, welcome to the class, right? I have seen other name which I don't want to get the pronunciation wrong. So BEPA, welcome to the class, right? Right. So this maybe it's there for a too long time period, it's gone off. So the tongue has various basic tastes, right? The sweet is sensed by the tip of the tongue, salt by the sides, sour, right, little posterior end of the tongue, bitter way back here, and the umami, a Japanese word that is introduced newly, which is for that savory meaty flavor. savory or meaty flavor is how we describe this particular taste that's sensed all over by the tongue, the fifth taste that is introduced newly. So this is something that is lingering on for a longer time period, something that you would have consumed, but still you have that sense of taste. It lingers on for a longer time period. It is what is referred to as that umami taste. Usually the chemical sensed by this is the glutamate. So that's the chemical usually sensed by these taste buds. So these are some things that we are quite aware of, the basic flavors, which is the sweet, salt, sour and the bitter. So umami is something that's newly introduced, which is talking about a meaty, savory flavor, maybe is there for a longer time period even after you would have consumed, right? Not so good. Most of these are actually giving that glutamate flavor. Many of them are the carcinogens. But yeah, modern theory actually says each part of the tongue should be able to taste all. Maybe this is not so true, but we are going to stick with our NCERT text as far as our NEET is concerned. Maybe later editions they will come up with that, where the new journals, the new theories, new experimentation says that maybe it's not very true that only a particular region of the tongue is confined to a particular taste. Now when you see these flavors, what is very specific to our Indian cuisine is hot, spicy flavor. Why do you think that is not listed in here? Yes, you can try and answer that question. Yes, Faisal was answering phagocytosis when maybe I was discussing the lymphoid tissue. Excellent, dear. The antigen-antibody interaction usually takes place in these lymphoid tissues. Secondary lymphoid organs is where we discuss in human health and diseases. So my question is, why is that spicy, or what you call the food is quite hot? Not in the sense of temperature, but in the sense of spice level, whichever slang that you teenagers would want to use it. It's quite spicy, it's quite hot, it brings tears in your eyes. Why is that particular flavor not listed anywhere here is my question. So try answering that particular question. Faisal, as usual, has come up with his answer. Let us know other viewpoints also. Why do you think this spicy flavor is not listed in there? Indira, then Angrila, Ankita, Sandesh, Sukumar, all of you also come up with your perspective of why the spicy flavor isn't included, right? So then next we discuss about the palate. I already told you sense that hard palate when you try and touch the roof. You go further down, it will be that of the soft palate. So you can clearly see this bony part here, it's the hard palate. It also has these ridges. We refer to them as rugae. I'm not putting it down because I want you to remember this word rugae for the folds in the stomach later point of time, okay? So then you further go down, it's soft palate, it moves on to form a conical projection, which is what is referred to as the bula, right? So what is the function of this palate? It's basically separating the nasal cavity and the oral cavity. Soft will be nasopharynx and oropharynx. Remember, I told you this conical projection blocks off nasopharynx so that food doesn't get into the nasal cavity, right? So this is formed by the maxillae and palatine bones. This is usually of the mucous membrane. As I told rugae, I want you to remember for the folds of the stomach. So, right? So that's about the palate which separates, or based on this, the NEET question can be given as, which structure allows you to both breathe and consume food at the same time? That will be your palate, okay? Then we have the pharynx. So as I told, pharynx has the nasopharynx, oropharynx and the laryngopharynx. We are mostly concerned with the oropharynx. And a very, very, very important structure that I want you to remember, given in the previous NEET examination and can be a NEET question, will be the structure called epiglottis. What's an epiglottis? It's a cartilaginous flap-like structure. It's made up of cartilage. It's flap-like, right? And it covers off the trachea. It is something that covers off the trachea so that the food that you consume is straight going only to the food pipe. See, look at that structure. We have the esophagus on one side, right? And we have the trachea on the other side. What do you learn in your lower classes? That esophagus is the food pipe, right? And trachea is the wind pipe. You want the food to go into the food pipe only, into the esophagus. You don't want it to get into the airways. It can cause a very serious choking problem, which can be leading to death as well if you do not know how to get that food that's stuck in there out. Right, many movies and the advertisement and the medical one initially give you this practice of somebody's choking on food. How do you know? Lift them up from the back, hold them tight, and move them so that they are getting that food out of their throat. Interesting video that you can see recently is that how a person who's arrested by the police actually helps the cop so that he gets over this choking problem, because there was nobody else to help the cop at that point of time other than the person he has arrested, right? He saved a life, although committed a crime there, right? So the cartilaginous flap-like structure is the epiglottis, which is actually covering off this particular wind pipe, the trachea, so that the food is directed only this way and not this way. This can lead to choking. We do not want that to happen. It can be given in a scenario also. Two of your friends, you're having food at a table and suddenly your friend starts choking. What would have happened? Scientifically, you would explain a non-functional epiglottis, right, which is covering off this trachea, or is also the opening of trachea called the glottis. On the other hand, esophageal opening, what is it called? Gullet. Do not get confused with the similar rhyming terminology, right? Spice, hot. Ankita says it's a temporary taste. Good. Couple of you try to answer. Basically, as you people told, let me put forth the cumulative form of it. It is something that is not a basic taste. It's a pain sensation. Spice is something that's considered a pain sensation, which is actually sensed by the pain receptors down the throat as you consume. That is why most of the time the food that you consume, if it's really spicy and hot, you cannot make it out initially. You gobble it up like any other normal food, and later the pain sensation starts, because we have pain receptors down the oral cavity through the throat, and also a little later you tend to feel that hot spicy food. Most of you would have experienced this, right? You can say this, this is something we have experienced. Come on, type that yes, yes, yes if you have gone through that experience. Initially, when you put that food in mouth, you're hungry, you just put it, you gobble it up, you don't sense that. Later time point, you tend to sense, not much later, but a little time gap is in there. Hope most of you would have experienced that, right? So this is a very, very important point. This is the take home point from this particular slide. Then we talk about sphincters. What are sphincters? These are some things which are making sure there is no backflow that's happening. It is maintaining a unidirectional sense. Now this is very, very important. So we have several sphincters throughout the alimentary canal, which makes sure that the food is going in a particular direction. Right? So we have the upper esophageal sphincter here before the food gets from the pharynx into the esophagus, and we have lower esophageal sphincter which is getting down there into the stomach. Right? So this is also what is referred to as the cardiac sphincter, because it is something that is leading to cardiac part of the stomach. Cardiac sphincter. Right? So upper esophageal sphincter, and we also have a lower esophageal sphincter. Now this is something that's made up of skeletal muscle. That's why we say deglutition. Swallowing of the food is a voluntary process. Very, very important. If you delve deeper, you understand that swallowing of the food is what is called as deglutition. It's a voluntary process. It's not an involuntary process. It's the skeletal muscle that's involved. As you go through the esophagus, initially it's made up of the skeletal muscle. As you come down, it's slowly made up of the smooth muscle. So when it comes to lower esophageal sphincter, the food coming into the stomach, here it becomes an involuntary action. A simple tip and trick that you can remember, wherever skeletal muscles are involved, it's a voluntary action. Wherever there is a smooth muscle involved, it will be involuntary. Again, this can take you back to your tissues chapter that you would have learnt, right? The different types of muscles that you have learnt about, cardiac, skeletal, smooth, right? So try and relate that here. Here, the upper esophageal sphincter is skeletal, whereas lower esophageal sphincter is something that is, involuntary, made up of smooth muscles, right? So the esophagus, this is the epiglottis, again straight listed in the NCERT text, quite important. Then we talked about the peristalsis action that is taking place in the esophagus, right? Esophagus is what we talked about. It varies, initially starts off skeletal, then both skeletal and smooth, and then it ends up with the smooth muscle. What usually happens there, the food is being directed, it is by the peristaltic movement. Then it ends in a J-shaped bag-like structure, which is the stomach, right? So what are all the different parts of the stomach? This rounded portion, what is it called? The fundus. Then we have the cardiac portion. Look at how the esophagus is joining the cardiac portion of this stomach, and so why not aptly call it a cardiac sphincter, right? Or a esophageal gastric sphincter, which is allowing the food to get into the stomach. Then it has the body and it has the pyloric portion, which is giving it away to the duodenum. So what is the sphincter down here? Pyloric sphincter, right? It is adjoining the pylorus part of the stomach and the duodenum part of the small intestine, right? So the class has started around 12 o'clock, dear. Yashwant is asking the question, so hope I answered yours. It is starting at 12, but you can actually, definitely rewatch it. It's a recorded one that's going to be there on the YouTube, so you can rewatch the missed portion and you can follow it up from now. So time to again take a little sip of water again. You do too. Yeah, so we are talking about the stomach being led to the small intestine, and the pyloric sphincter is the one that is, adjoining this. So it's a J-shaped bag-like structure. It serves as a mixing chamber and a holding reservoir. It secretes HCl. We are going to discuss the digestive glands also shortly, right? So that's about stomach in terms of anatomy. Right, so that's what is listed again in your NCERT page. You can see the highlighted words, the cardiac, fundic, pyloric, as well as the body. So these are the four main regions of the stomach. Stomach leads to small intestine. Look at that beautiful diagram where we talk about the different regions of the small intestine. There's a short duodenum, right? Remember, duodenum is the C-shaped one. Right, from the new editions, remember it clearly, it's the C-shaped structure, and then it is leading to a short jejunum and a very long coiled ileum. So ileum is something that is going to be longest of the three. It's a C-shaped structure. The duodenum is also the one which is receiving the bile as well as the pancreatic juice from hepatopancreatic duct. And what is that sphincter that guards there? Sphincter of Oddi. It's the sphincter of Oddi that you find in the duodenum, how those juices are poured, and maximal digestion is taking place in the jejunum. Jejunum is where you will find the maximal digestion that is taking place. And right, the ileum is the very long coiled part. And what is that mucosa throwing itself into which shape? Here they are forming the finger-like villi, also have the brush border, the microvilli. And what do they do here? Increase the surface area of absorption. Now this is a very, very, very important and simple point. Most of you would have learnt at the school level itself. Villi are those finger-like projections that you will find in the small intestine in order to increase the surface area of absorption. If you throw the, that particular lining into folds like that, obviously the area of absorption is increased. Maximal amount of the nutrients can be reabsorbed from that of the nutrients that you supply the body with, right? And again, the small intestine is giving away to the large intestine. So what is that little valve that you see here where the small intestine is making its entry into the large intestine? It's what is referred to as the ileocecal valve. It's very, very, very important that you know these sphincters well. The upper esophageal sphincter is where we start at mouth. Then the esophagus is giving it away to the stomach at the cardiac sphincter, right? Or these sphincter, gastroesophageal sphincter. And this stomach gives it away to the small intestine. What is the sphincter there? Pyloric sphincter. Now the small intestine gives it away to the large intestine. And what's the sphincter here? It's the ileocecal valve. So the questions can be asked at many levels here. What is the valve that is present between the small and large intestine? You need to remember the regions of the small and large also. Small intestine ends with the ileum. Large intestine starts with the cecum. Only then you can make out that ileocecal valve. So what are the different regions of the large intestine? There is this particular cecum. Cecum is the one which is hosting those microbes that are present. So this is the structure that will have that. And you will also find that there is a blind, finger-like tubule there. So that is vermiform appendix. Many of you mentioned this before when I told about the vestigial organ. Lots and lots of you have answered vestigial organ. You said vermiform appendix. So where do we have this? In the cecum. So as long as it is there, no particular function. But what happens when food gets lodged and it gets blocked off, it gets inflamed, it can release toxic substances into the body cavity, which can be quite fatal. Only then the surgery is performed where this particular vermiform appendix is completely removed. What is that particular surgery called? Appendectomy. Wherever you come across this particular suffix ectomy, it's the surgical removal. What is surgically removed here? It is the appendix. So it is called the appendectomy. Same if you have to remember in human reproduction, right where vas deferens is being removed, vasectomy. The fallopian tube is being removed, a part of it. It is called the tubectomy. If the uterus is removed, hysterectomy, right? Mammary glands are removed, mastectomy. So wherever you come across this particular prefix ectomy, understand surgical removal, right? So cecum, it is followed by colon. Look at this particular colon. It is ascending, there is transverse, there is descending, and little that S-shaped sigmoid colon, which is finally leading to what is called as rectum, which is opening out through anus. The rectum also has two valves. There is again the voluntary and the involuntary sphincters. There is an external anal sphincter and the internal anal sphincter, right? The internal one as well as the external one, whereas one is involuntary and other is the voluntary. So here also there are two more sphincters. So feces can be stored in the rectum for a particular time period, where voluntarily it can muscles. So the internal anal sphincter again is made up of smooth and involuntary, external is skeletal and voluntary, right? So cecum, as I told, you can get that from the beautiful picture, how there is this AC, ascending colon, TC, transverse colon, descending, the sigmoid colon. It also has these fatty appendages. These are what are called as epiploic appendages. More than this, one important point is you can see how they are, you know, forming pouch-like structures. These are called hostra. This is because of longitudinal structures called tinea coli. Right? You can see that large intestine usually is larger in diameter compared to, that's why the names simply smaller diameter, small intestine, larger diameter, it's the large intestine. The large intestine is thrown into these pouch-like structures because of these longitudinal tinea coli, which are called the hostra. It also has a lot of fatty appendages, which are what are referred to as the epiploic appendages, which are a little beyond in terms of the, you know, the syllabus is concerned, but that's okay. This is what mainly that you will have to remember, right, as far as the NCERT text goes. Very, 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 very important. The sequence has been asked in the NEET before many a times. Also, just a direct question, what is the outermost layer of the alimentary canal called, or the innermost one that is called, or which is the one that is thrown into folds like rugae in the stomach and villi in the intestine. Lots and lots of questions are possible from the histology of alimentary canal. First of all, understand it as 4 layers. What is the outermost layer called? It's called the serosa. The second one, outside in, is what we are learning, just to make sure for you one more time. There is muscularis, right? Muscularis is something that has the inner circular, outer longitudinal. There are also oblique muscles that are present in certain areas like the stomach, right? There may be found oblique muscles in the stomach. A hyphen is not required there. Let me erase that and take the pen back again, right? So oblique muscles are some things that you will find in the stomach. Serosa is something that is not found in esophagus. These are certain points that are little beyond, but at least try and learn the sequence well. Sequence is very, very important. Outermost serosa, then we have muscularis, where there is outer longitudinal, inner circular. The submucosa. Sub is beneath the mucosa, so it's called the submucosa, and then mucosa. It is important that you understand such prefixes so that you don't go wrong with the sequence. Suddenly in the examination, say for example, you are confused which is first, submucosa or the mucosa, when you are coming outside in. So understand sub is a prefix that is letting you understand it is beneath. So submucosa is beneath the mucosa, so that will be the third layer, and mucosa will be the innermost one, which is enclosing that space. What is the space referred to as? It's what is called as the lumen, where actually the food is something that's passing through. So which is the one that's undergoing all those morphological features that are anatomically, if you're looking at it, how they are undergoing these variations, whether it is rugae in the stomach, right? These are the folds which are stretching in order to be able to accommodate a lot of food. Remember, stomach can hold the food for 4 to 5 hours in the stomach, and villi in the intestine. So these are the folds that mucosa undergoes in the stomach and in the intestine. Another beautiful diagram for you so that you understand. This is the NCERT simple picture that helps you to understand the sequence. and this is one other from the physiology standard books where you can understand this even better. There is the outermost serosa, muscularis, submucosa, and the mucosa, right? It's very, very, very important that you understand these layers, within which there are nerve plexus also that are present, which are the Meissner's plexus, right, and the plexus or Auribac. So these are the plexus that are present, nerve network that are present within these layers, which are also helping with the peristaltic movement, release of the gastric juices, right? So here we are talking about what is listed, whatever we have discussed so far, how the cecum is the blind sac, it has the microbes in it, and there is vestigial structure called the appendix. So whatever we have discussed from the NCERT extract, right? So this also we have discussed beautifully with another diagram as well. Look at that particular villi structure, within which there is a lacteal. What is a lacteal? It's a lymphatic vessel. Now, why is it of so much of importance within the villi? If you're talking about the food components again, the carbohydrates, the proteins, right? These are some things which can be absorbed into the blood. Once they are broken down to smaller monosaccharides, amino acids, they can be directly absorbed into the blood. Fats, on the other hand, cannot be done in such manner. They cannot be absorbed into the blood, but instead they take the indirect route. They get into the lymphatic vessels first and then get into the blood circulation. So these lacteals that you find within the villi are very, very important structures when it comes to the fat absorption. Lots and lots of questions are asked based on this as well. Remember, from the digestion, two most important topics again if we have to talk about is from the tooth area. There are questions that are given again from the digestion of the food, all these gastric enzymes, right, intestinal ones, and then how the food is undergoing digestion and absorption. These are the areas where you will have to really focus upon as far as the NEET is concerned, right? So the lymphatic vessel is the one that is helping with the fat absorption which is present within the villi, because fat is something that's not absorbed into the blood. It's the carbs and the proteins, that simpler forms of it are directly absorbed into the blood. On the other hand, fats, lacteals are required, lymphatic vessels are required, right? Then we move on to the digestive glands. First up, salivary glands, right? So salivary glands, what are the three kinds? We have the parotid glands, the sublingual glands, and submandibular glands. Which is the largest of the three? Come on guys, quickly answer. Most of you have remained a little, silent for a long time. I want you to just wake up, all of you, right? Let's make it more active and interactive one more time. My question is, what is the largest salivary gland of the three? Now, when we say it is the three types of salivary glands, again they are paired. All these are paired, right? That is, they are two in number. There are two parotid glands. There are two sublingual. Again, what does sub say? It is beneath. The lingual, it is beneath the tongue. Sublingual glands beneath the tongue. Submandibular, beneath the mandible. These are the glands that are present beneath the mandible. Each of them open into the oral cavity. All these open into the oral cavity through ducts. What are these ducts called? The Stenson's ducts, the ducts of Rivinus, and the Wharton's ducts. Don't worry about these fancy terms. If you can't remember the ducts, that's totally fine. Ankita and Faisal, again as usual, have come up with the answer, the parotid glands. They extend from throughout your cheek. Now these are the ones which are undergoing that inflammation when you are suffering from mumps. Look at that picture. If you can Google saying mumps, usually the children will appear with, very swollen the cheeks, right? Why? It's the mums, the parotid glands that are getting inflamed in them, right? The parotid glands are the ones which are the largest of the three, right? And sublingual are the ones which are the smallest. Yes, the answer is in there. So locations, you can see these are extending from the ear, pinnae, along the side of the mandible and beneath the tongue. Of course, all of them are pouring the salivary secretions into the oral cavity. What does saliva contain? Can you name that antibacterial substance within the saliva? Yes, yes, guys, quickly try and answer. Sukumar, Indira, all others also, Angrila, there is Charisma who's joined later point of time, I think Yashwant as well, right? You also try to answer what is that antibacterial substance that's present in the saliva, right? Then we move on to the gastric glands. Yes, salivary gland secretions is something later when we discuss digestion of food, we're going to talk about that as well. Again, Faisal, Ankita, the standards, they have definitely come up with the answer. Others also try and answer, follow the league, right? So the gastric glands here, obviously from the very name you understand, glands that are present in the stomach, right? Very, 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 very important slide. So pay attention. It has what are called as the mucous neck cells. What do? They secrete the mucus. Why do we need mucus? HCl is of quite acidic pH. We do not want it to damage or injure the lining of the stomach, which is why we need the mucus, right? So that is something that's secreted by the mucous neck cells. And then we have the parietal cells, which are the ones that are, or the oxyntic cells that are secreting HCl and Cassell's intrinsic factor. HCl, is the acidic juice which is maintaining that very low pH, about 1.82 in the stomach. What for is the Cassell's intrinsic factor? It is helping with absorption of vitamin B12. Right? Accidentally, if these are some things that are damaged, B12 cannot be absorbed. What would be the end result? We will not be able to have enough of RBCs and one might suffer from anemia. Can anybody establish this link? Why, when vitamin B12 is something that is failed to be reabsorbed because of failed parietal cells, anemia is caused? Establish that particular link. As I told, correlating, co-linking is something that's very, very, very important, right? Clearly you can explain, dear Ankita, B12 is something that is not absorbed. So how is that it is leading to anemia is my question, right? Then we have chief cells or the peptic cells which secrete the pepsinogen. It's a protease. Gastric lipase, even in our mouth also we have the lingual lipase, ignorable function, whether it is in your mouth or in the stomach, right? And then we also have gastrin hormone that is secreted by the G cells. So oxyntic or parietal cells, the chief or the peptic cells. So these three types of cells are quite important. So what are these? Referred to as the gastric pits, into which they release their secretions. Those enzymes are secreted into these gastric pits. Now these are much deeper when it goes to intestinal glands. They go to the submucosa level, forming crypts of Liberkin. They forms the crypts of Liberkin. Yes guys, I'm waiting for the answer. What is the link? When we say the absorption of vitamin B12 is failing, why is it leading to anemia is my question, right? Next I move up into the intestinal glands. Intestinal glands have goblet cells. Link it with your tissue chapter. Goblet cells are the unicellular glandular epithelia which secrete mucus, right? Unicellular glandular epithelial. Recall your epithelial tissue from the animal tissues chapter, right? Structural organization in animals. Quite important there as well as here. So goblet cells are some things that are found in the intestine. In the stomach, chief neck cells are the ones which are secreting the mucus there, right? Then we have the enteroendocrine cells, which are secreting the secretin, cholecystokinin, right, and gastric inhibitory peptide. We also have Paneth cells that secrete lysozyme. Yes, Ankita and Faisal have given the right answer. The antibacterial substance in the saliva, lysozyme. It is also something that is secreted by Paneth cells in the intestine. So lysozyme is that antibacterial substance which is killing those bacteria that are coming along with the food. Vitamin B12 is needed to synthesize hemoglobin. Exactly, dear. For the maturation of the RBCs, vitamin B12 is very much required. In case vitamin B12 is not absorbed, we will not be able to make enough of RBCs. So the lower are the number of RBCs, it is leading to an anemic condition, right? Hemoglobin is something that is lowering down there, so it is leading to a condition called the anemia, right? So that is why this is linked, how Castle's intrinsic factor is failing or the oxyntic parietal cells are failing, and how is it linked with the anemia. Great, Faisal, keep it up, dear. Excellent, excellent answer. So when we look at the intestinal glands, right, they go much deeper into the submucosa level, forming the crypts of Liberken. A German spelling with those two dots on the U, which brings out that pronunciation, right? Crypts of Liberken are something that, sorry, it will be Y. Crypts of Liberken are some things which you will find in between the villi, right? At the basis of the villi, in between, there are deep pit-like structures. Gastric pits extend only till mucosa. Intestinal glands, these pits are something that are extending till the submucosa level. Yes, dear Ankita, Paneth cells are what we were discussing, are secreting the lysozyme, right? So here we have goblet cells, most importantly, it secrete the mucus. And then we also have endocrine cells which are secreting several different, hormones. So liver, it is the largest gland. So to start with an easy, simple MCQ, it is the largest gland, and it has structural functional units called the hepatic lobules. These hepatic lobules are covered by a connective tissue sheath. What is it called? Glisson's capsule. Very, very, very important. Glisson's capsule is something, it's a connective tissue sheath which is covering these hepatic lobules, not the entire liver. Within liver, structural functional units are hepatic lobules which are covered by connective tissue sheath called the Glisson's capsule. If you're looking at the hepatic lobule structure, it has these hepatic cords, right? And then there is a mid-hepatic lobule, right? With the artery and the bile duct, they are forming the, portal triad, 3 of the openings. Basically understand the liver is something that is secreting the bile juice, which is stored in the gallbladder. And finally secreted into, released through hepatopancreatic duct into the duodenum. So how does bile help when it doesn't have enzymes? Very, very simple question that I have asked. Come on guys, bile juice doesn't have any enzymes, but how does it still help with the digestion? Very important, easy question that I've posed, which you would have answered at your 9th and 10th grades as well. How does this help in the digestion, right? Next up, we are discussing the pancreas, a very, very important, it's mixed or composite or heterocrine. All these are the names of this particular gland. Why is it called so? It has both exocrine part as well as endocrine part. Faisal, again, bingo, you got that right. It's basically emulsification of the fats. Bile has bile pigments, the bile salts especially, which are helping with the emulsification of the fats, which is why we need that bile juice. So the pancreas, on the other hand, has the endocrine part, which is responsible for secretion of very important hormones like insulin, glucagon, right? So these are very, very important hormones later when we discuss the chemical control, chemical integration chapter as well. Now we are mostly worried about the exocrine part. The islets of Langerhans are something which form the endocrine part, and there are pancreatic acini which form the exocrine part, which are secreting a lot of digestive enzymes. Proteases, if you see, mostly in the pro form like trypsinogen, chymotrypsinogen, procarboxypeptidase, so look at these names wherever you are coming across this ogen or pro, or understand these are in the inactive forms. We do not want active forms to be released so that it starts acting on our own body, the protein part of our body, right? So they are in the inactive form, later activated by an intestinal enzyme called the enterokinase. Of course, along with these, it also secretes the amylases, lipases also, right? So exocrine part is what we are mainly concerned with of the pancreas in this particular chapter, right? So we are done with the liver. So ducts are again very, very important. The gallbladder is something that is giving away what is called as the cystic duct, right? So ducts are some things that you need to remember. Then it is guarded by sphincter of Oddi. This is something that I already mentioned. Very, very, very important point. You can highlight from your text, right? So the digestion of food. Swallowing is what is called as the deglutition. This is something that we already discussed. When the food is mixed with saliva, what is it called? Food bolus. So when it is mixed with saliva, what actually is happening? There is lysozyme, right? There are a lot of these, salts also. That's why in your CBSE experiments, you add a little bit of salt also to test the amylase activity. It's the activator, you remember. So very, very important chemical equation that you need to remember is this one. How starch in presence of salivary amylase and pH 6.8 is converted to maltose. So about 30% of the starch is digested in the very mouth itself. Very important point. As it is traveling through the esophagus also, the salivary amylase is still acting on it. You know, esophagus doesn't secrete any enzymes, but when it comes to stomach, its action stops. Why does salivary amylase stop acting when it comes to stomach? Yes guys, try and answer that question. Why does salivary amylase not act when it comes to the stomach? Here you remember this, we already discussed the mucous neck cells, the peptic cells and the parietal or the oxyntic cells, right? Very important equation that you need to remember. The starch, the carb digestion is something that's starting in the very mouth itself of all the components with the action of salivary amylase, also referred to as ptyalin. Asked in previous NEET examination with this name also. Remember ptyalin, in the presence of, in the atmosphere where pH 6.8 and of course the salts that are there, it is something that's broken down to maltose because of acidic pH. Exactly right. Very good, all of you. Very nice. It's the acidic pH. Suddenly it is dropping to about 1.8 because of HCl in the stomach. So this action stops. Salivary amylase cannot act at that low pH when it can act at 6.8, right? So now it comes to the stomach, where I already told you it can store about 4 to 5 hours. When it is mixed with HCl, what is it called? Chyme. Before with saliva it's called bolus. Now it is called the chyme, right? So here what is provided with HCl, that is providing a pH of about 1.8. Now this is very much required for converting the pepsinogen, remember again in an inactive form, to pepsin. When it comes to the infants, prorenin to the renin. That is also an important reaction that is taking place, right? So otherwise, what will happen? There is excoriation. That is, in case they are not this HCl mucus is not there, HCl might actually literally pull off the layer. Excoriation is something that is going to take place. Yes, Ankita dear, stomach is more acidic, right? And what is that intestinal juice referred to as? Succus entericus. Very, very, very important point, right? Intestinal juice is what is called as the succus entericus, and submucosal glands are the Brunner's glands. Very, very, very important point again. The submucosal glands or the Brunner's glands are some things that are, secreting the bicarbonate water. Again, for the same reason, this acidic food comes into the small intestine. You do not want the lining of the small intestine to be damaged. So in the duodenum, we have these submucosal, that is within submucosa, these glands are called the Brunner's glands. So what exactly happens in the intestine? Yes, of course, in the stomach, pepsinogen is converted to pepsin, prorenin into renin. They are acting on the proteins, right? Now, these proteins are further broken down to peptones or proteases. The trypsin, chymotrypsin and carboxypeptidase, remember these are the active forms, because trypsinogen, right, is something that is activated to trypsin by an intestinal enzyme called enterokinase. It's a part of succus entericus. This trypsin in turn is activating carboxypeptidase and chymotrypsin in order to be able to break them into dipeptides, two peptide bonds between the amino acids, right? Then we have polysaccharides on which amylase is acting to disaccharides. We have seen that happen in oral cavity as well, right? Fats, it is lipases that are acting in order to form diglycerides and further down to monoglycerides. Then we also have nucleic acids on which there are nucleases that are initially acting. Then we also have the nucleotidases, nucleosidases that are acting to form further down, break them into the sugars, finally to the ribose sugar, deoxyribose sugar. They have to be broken down into the simpler forms. Remember, again, recall the definition in order to be able to absorb them, right? So finally, dipeptides are acted upon by dipeptidases. Remember the simple tip, final step enzymes belong to intestinal juice. If you are confused during the examination which enzymes are of pancreatic enzymes, which are of intestinal, the final step enzymes are usually of the intestinal juice. That is one tip you can remember so that you do not get confused between two. So dipeptidases finally convert them to amino acids, and of course we have maltase, lactase, sucrase, right, which are breaking them down further, nucleosidases, and then we also have the lipases. But when it comes to absorption, most important thing we need to focus upon is I'll come to the calorific values later, the hormonal control. We need to focus mainly on the fats. See, look at these carbohydrates, they converted to glucose directly going to blood capillary. Very, very, very important diagram. And you can easily understand the whole absorption also. Protein, they are taken by the intestinal epithelial cells as amino acid directly going into the blood capillary. On the other hand, fats, these are not soluble. They cannot be taken by the blood capillaries. So what is the process that is going on in here? Bile salts are carrying out emulsification so that they form what are called as micelles, right? These micelles are initially absorbed into the intestinal epithelial cells. There they are forming chylomicrons. What are chylomicrons? Protein coated fat globules. What are chylomicrons? Protein coated fat globules. Where are these formed? Look at that particular thing very, very clearly. Please pay attention. They are formed in the epithelial cells itself. Later they are absorbed into the lacteal. What is lacteal again? If you recall, it is the lymphatic vessel that is present in the villi, right? Little lymphatic vessels that are present in the villi. So chylomicrons, those protein coated fat globules, are formed in the epithelial cells itself. Later they are absorbed into the lacteals and later finally given away to the blood circulation through the lymphatic network. It is given away finally into the blood circulation back again. So most importantly, you will have to concentrate on the fat absorption. So if you go back to the calorific values which are recently added, remember these numbers: carbohydrates, proteins, fats about 4.1, 5.65 and 9.45. That's the diagram of the bomb calorimeter, which allows us to understand how many calories are something which are given by it, right? So after this, this is the hormonal control. We will learn in detail mostly in the chemical integration, right? Here you're just listing the names. In the stomach it is the gastrin, here it is secretin, CCK, right? So these are the important enzymes. You know, CCK is something that is acting both upon the gallbladder and the pancreas. So this is something that's very important that you need to remember from this. So absorption, as I told, fat absorption, concentrate on this point. So nice table which allows you to understand how each are being absorbed. Amino acids, active transport, monosaccharides like that of the glucose also by the active transport, right? Then with the facilitated transport also there's some of the glucose that's absorbed. Simple diffusion, very small amounts of glucose and all. The electrolytes like chloride ion is also by the simple diffusion. This table is something that's very, very important that you need to remember, right? Again, this absorption assimilation is nicely put it forth through the picture for you so that you understand how the ingested food, right, fat especially, they are forming monoglycerides, fatty acids, then form the chylomicrons, then form the monoglycerides and then the triglycerides, which are finally how each step they are undergoing this breaking down, catabolism as well as that of the anabolism. This is a very, very nice picture where it helps you to understand. Straight from the NCERT, which are the substances that are absorbed in the mouth, and then stomach, the small intestine, large intestine. Beyond NCERT, if at all you are asked, alcohol, right? I think that is also mentioned here, sorry. So alcohol is something that is absorbed in the stomach. It goes into the liver. Remember that hepatic portal system also, right? So the alcohol is something that is absorbed in the stomach. Then we have the assimilation finally, where it becomes a part of the tissue, right? So the assimilation is where it is becoming the bodily cells or the tissues after the absorption. The disorders of the digestive system. Now this is something, a very, very important tip. In the physiology, put together all the disorders of all the physiology chapters you have in the 11th class. How many will it be? It will the entire, or you're putting them together in terms of the writing, hardly it is 2 to 3 pages. And there is maximum possibility there are 1 or 2 questions that are coming from this disorders. So smallest portion to be learning and the maximal score that you can get. So these are the little tips that you can follow, right? Learning should be, passionate. You should learn as much as possible, but there is a certain way when it comes to a set of examinations, entrances, right? So this is one simple tip. Learn all the disorders of all the physiology chapters perfectly. Definitely there are 2 questions that you will be able to answer easily, a cakewalk. So what are all the disorders with the digestive system? Jaundice. More than a disorder, it's a symptom where there is yellowish appearance of the eyes, the white part of the eye, or you will see of the limbs also when there is further in the foot also it appears that entire body, it is starting to become yellowish in color because bile pigments are something that are increasing in the concentration, a non-functional liver. When at all, if at all it's caused in the infants, newly born ones, usually it's not very, fatal thing. Infant jaundice is quite common, which can be treated, where, fetal RBC production is quite high. The products that are, byproducts that are generated, those are also some things that are causing that in the infant. Vomiting, most important point you need to remember, the vomiting center is present in the medulla, right? Later in the brain, the neural control also, it's quite an important one. Where do we have it? In medulla. What's vomiting or emesis? The failure of the esophageal sphincters, where the stomach contents are coming out through the mouth. Remember, what is in the intestine is never coming back through the mouth, right? From the intestine, it always has to travel in the unidirectional manner to the anus. It's only the stomach contents that are usually vomited, right? Then we have diarrhea, abnormal frequency of the feces. Basically, the water is not being reabsorbed. So, most important point you need to concentrate is increased liquidity is due to reduction in the absorption of food. Absorption is decreasing. That is why, yes, it's a reverse peristalsis, dear. Exactly, nice term that you have used there. Then we have constipation. Constipation is where the inability to excrete. There is this not much of a bowel movement. The feces is stored for a long time period. Water is being reabsorbed. It becomes quite hard and difficult to excrete. So that's why you need to have a lot of fiber. Roughage is quite important. It's very, very important you consume your fiber. Consume those raw vegetables, fruits, right? It's very, very important so that your bowels are clean. You do not undergo constipation, right? Then indigestion can be many things. Just before the NEET examination, you're very under stress, there's a lot of anxiety, or you would have had some spicy food. All these can lead to indigestion. So try and stay calm as much as possible. Try and meditate, right? This is one habit you can inculcate from now on itself, so that forget about all other factors. You are not screwing up your examination mainly because of not being able to maintain the composure. So try and get into that habit from now on itself, so that whatever you know and whatever little things you are doubtful of also come back to your mind when it is serene and calm. When you keep on throwing stones at it, cause those ripples, obviously anxiety, stress, all that comes into the picture. Try and be more composed, practice meditation. So during the NEET examination also, you will be able to crack it in a very serene, peaceful manner, right? So with that, we come to the end of another lecture. Of course, we have PEM, protein energy malnutrition. Nowadays, questions based on this are quite common. We have the kwashiorkor and marasmus, right? Marasmus usually in the infants, kwashiorkor later point of time. One is something where we are talking about, the protein deficiency, and then there are this calorie deficiency also, right? You see a lot of these children with very thin limbs, wasted limbs in the African, when the news media is shown, parts like Somalia and all, right, pot bellies and all. It's mainly because of the malnutrition of the protein, right? So these are two important ones. The overall schedule that we have given for the month of the Jan, we're done with digestion. You still up this week have the current electricity, long distance transport, gravitation, cell cycle division, these upcoming lectures in the month of Jan. We will come up with a curriculum for the next month also, not to worry at all. So we finished 4 sessions highlighted in the green there: the human reproduction, animal kingdom, the digestion and absorption, as well as reproductive health. You can go back and check our videos just in case you missed the previous videos. They are up there recorded. You can always watch them, like them, share them, subscribe them if you feel the content is something that is helping you, right? And do comment us and let us know in case you have any questions, so that we can clear in the next few sessions, right? So this is Infinity Learn. We want you to really crack that NEET. We want you to, enjoy these video sessions and learn, not just enjoying in a fun manner, but in an infinite way. We want you to learn also here. So stay tuned to these zoology classes every Tuesday, 12 o'clock is our sessions. I want you to use this code when you log on to that website, infinitylearn.com. We have these amazing test series for you where you can just take the package of answering the different tests, or register for the courses where we have amazing teachers giving you those lectures, right? And thank you all for a very, very patient listening. I want to thank each one of you by the names. There are a lot of you today that have quite interacted very, very well, right? So wish you all a very good luck, happy learning, and love to you all.